Hello, hello. Good afternoon. Happy Friday, everyone. Welcome to The Reason We Learn. I'm Deb Philman, your host. And if you are joining us for the first time on this channel, please consider subscribing. This is where you can find all kinds of content related to education in America, higher education, K-12 education, public, private, you name it, all across this land. I am covering what's going on with our schools. To that end, I bring you these live interviews and chats with some of the people who are also watchdogging it with me. And today is no exception. Today I have Kelly, who is the host of a Time to Stand podcast. She's also an independent education researcher in California, and she has been keeping her eye on what's going on out there, but also in general, what's going on across this nation. And I asked her to come join us today to share some of her findings. I think you will be surprised, despite what you might be hearing in the mainstream press about there not being critical race theory in the class, or here it is a little bit, but not so much, whatever. What Kelly's going to talk to us about will probably surprise you. Would you agree, Kelly? Would you say that most people will be surprised?
Shocked.
I think shocked would be a good word.
Yeah.
So if you are here now, please consider liking, sharing, commenting, and get this out to other people so they can join us and possibly ask questions during the broadcast. Let's go. What do we need to know, Kelly?
All right. Well, for this topic, many people have heard about ethnics. By now, they've probably heard of the critical race theory topic all over the media across this nation. And it's really been a focal point where I'm at in California. Here in Monterey County, where I'm located, we have the Salinas Union High School District, which has made some headlines. And one of the things that I learned after the Christopher Rufo report and exposure about our Tolteca Quayton was that he was contracted directly by the Salinas Union High School District to teach ethnics. Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say, can you explain who he is? Because I think people don't really know who he is unless they're involved.
Yeah. So our Tolteca has been he's been involved in many different groups. He is somebody promoting both ethnic studies, but he's also been a teacher. He has been involved at the state level in California as a co-chair of the ethnic studies model curriculum that they were working on. He's part of a variety of different groups that he's engaged with, and really an activist for social justice. And he's also been an editor of the book Rethinking Ethnic Studies, which is really important, looking at that book and understanding some of the ideas that are in the ideology behind what is being taught. So he's an influential person in the effort for ethnic studies.
Okay. Now, what some people watching this might be wondering is, well, what's the big deal? I mean, California does have a very multi-ethnic population, and why wouldn't we want our students there to become familiar with different cultures and to be more sensitive about people who come from different cultures? I mean, on the surface, this sounds like something that we would want, and it sounds good. So what would you say to folks, just top level, before we dive deep into like what it actually when it comes out in the classroom? Like, what's the general philosophy about, hey, why don't we teach all these different cultures?
Absolutely. I've heard that a lot, because that is what you think of when you think of ethnic studies. You think we're studying different cultures and we're understanding a lot of different people. But what people may not realize is that it goes way beyond the study of various cultures. And in my opinion, it's almost like a bait and switch, what we're seeing, because the advertising is not what is the product received. In these classes, we should obviously be teaching a lot about, in my opinion, uniting various ethnic groups and all of those things. But what this is something completely different and entirely different. And So I do have students that I've heard share, I got to learn about an experience from somebody who, is from another culture or ethnicity that I had never learned about before. Well, it's all in how it's being taught. And then what are the stories that are being promoted and what is really going on here? So while we hear that, it's often not what's really going on in the class.
So there's kind of like the perception, because we call it ethnic studies, that we're just studying different ethnicities or studying, how they celebrate differently, they have different backgrounds or histories or whatever. It's really not like that at all.
Right. Well, and it really that's something I love learning about. I love learning about, and I mean, my family, we went on a trip and we were talking with different people from different tribes, and that was amazing to learn about the foods they eat, the cultures, and the various traditions that they have, and the foods they eat, and all of the things that they believe. That is a wonderful thing to be able to learn as you are going to school. But exactly, this is completely different from that.
Right. Yeah. So, for example, the similar argument is advanced when we talk about like critical race theory. You'll get the, don't you want to teach Black history, or don't you want to teach the actual real history? And it feels like a straw argument, in the sense that it's kind of like, what? I never said I didn't. It's kind of like, I never said I don't want to teach ethnic studies. It just matters like how you're teaching it. What is and they use this word, what's the lens through which you are looking as you teach it? What's your world view? So for example, like I could say, I'm teaching American history. I'm teaching American history. And I could come into the classroom and say, America's a horrible, terrible, no good, very bad place, right? But I'm teaching American history. Or I could come into the classroom and do the opposite and teach like a jingoistic American never did anything wrong and it's perfect in every possible way. Or I could come in and do the truth, like, which is, the unvarnished. It's a lot of good, some bad, this and that and the other. So where parents maybe get confused is there's a difference between like theory and praxis. There's a difference between like the name of something and what gets in the classroom. And so that's why I'm really excited for you to be here, because hopefully you can show like how it's actually being done, or how they talk about it when it's not right in your face. Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's surprising because even myself, when I first heard ethnic studies, I was curious to see the curriculum, to see the slides, to see the course materials and the teacher trainings, and what is the belief system behind this? Because you're right. It absolutely, when you hear ethnic studies, who would be against that? I mean, that's a great idea. So it's really about, yeah. And what I've seen is something that I think many people need to be really aware of. This is what's being introduced to the kids.
Do you think that after looking at everything that you've seen, that names like ethnic studies are chosen almost intentionally so that we have a harder time criticizing them because they sound good?
Yeah, it's almost like they're framing it in a way. It's clever marketing, clever public relations, perhaps.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, who would be against, sounding things that sound so amazing? Ethnic studies, being inclusive, being compassionate and caring. All of these things are things that we are for, but it is in the details of what's really going on.
Right. Exactly. So let's talk. Let's do what should we do? You want to tell us? Do you want to show us? How do you want to go about this?
Well, let's start off with a look at some of the Salinas Union High School District's curriculum for the students, which is on the Time to Stand link.
Okay, so let me see. This one would be
a time to stand.me and then ethnic studies.
Okay. Yeah. See if I get the right one. Oh, I see what I have to do. A time to stand.
So I'll share a little bit with your audience.
Yeah, please do, because I got to get the right link up. Was
Sure.
that one of the ones that you gave me over Twitter?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay, I'll get it up. I'm sorry, keep going.
Sure. So basically, when I started researching education, I've had a lot of parents come and ask me for help. I've sat with them at board meetings and joined them and gave them answers to their questions, because I started off in 2016 being the parent, not knowing the answers to all these questions and how to go about things. So I know what that can be like. And back in this last summer, I had parents asking me about the ethnic studies class. And when I joined them at the board meeting, I had learned that this district contracted directly with this man I'd mentioned, who had worked at the state on the ethnic studies model curriculum to create. He had been contracted at $1,500 an hour to make this that we're looking at for the Salinas Union High School District specifically. And I ended up doing a public records request with an attorney to obtain this student curriculum, slides, videos, source documents, teacher trainings, all of those things. So if you scroll down a bit, let's see.
Is there something to click into?
Oh, yeah, right on there. You should be able to click and scroll down a bit.
Here we go.
Yeah. Okay.
So
right here, it just kind of lays out ethnic studies in solidarity with it. What is ethnic studies? These are going over some of the various units that the kids are going to cover. And then you can see there's a focus on social justice and transformative action. So it's really also introducing a lot of concepts of activism in this course. For those not familiar with hegemony or normalization, hegemony is a phrase that traces back to Antonio Gramsci. It's a Marxist belief where you have this hegemony that essentially has these, they are the ones like the ruling class, so to speak. And yeah. So if you want to scroll down a little bit further, I can share a little bit more with you. Keep going. Okay. These land acknowledgements are common now. They're done in many different ways where they are essentially acknowledging the land that they're on. And I'll have you scroll a little bit further here. We've got.
But look at this, though. This says, to both our Indigenous and African forebears, we commit to the continued struggle for liberation and reparations, for it is through this and through freedom and justice that we truly give honor.
Right.
The struggle for liberation implies that people are not currently free. Mm-hmm. And then reparations, of course, is a political idea, a political goal. Now, I'm not going to make a judgment one way or the other, whether, if you're for it or against it, that's a whole separate conversation. But we're talking here about public schools. And so this is in the insertion, of a political idea into this statement. I just want to point that out.
Yeah, that's really important. And there's the reference to United Teachers Los Angeles, also known as the UTLA, which is associated with CTA and NEA. Really important.
Right. Also political organizations.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So anything. Oh, okay. And then here, too, we have words like privilege, oppression. Mm-hmm. These two words are associated with critical theory.
Right.
Right. And
the systems of our world, critical consciousness. Yep.
And then racial and social justice. So we have just on this one page, privilege, oppression, systems of the world, as if the world is divided in systems. Mm-hmm. And then we have critical consciousness, which is absolutely part of critical theory and postmodernism, and racial and social justice concepts that come right out of critical theory. So all of this so far that I've seen is just going critical theory, critical theory, critical theory.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's what the source is very much in support of and promoting. This may be difficult to see. There's a few different.
Let me see if I can zoom in some more. Let's see, zoom in. Does this help a little bit?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah. This shows you can see on the bottom ex-disciplinary. Wait. Yeah, it's hard.
Ex-disciplinarity.
Yes, ex-disciplinarity.
Ex-disciplinarity.
Right.
Relationships. What is CXRXPX?
That is a great question. I do not yet know the answer to that. There's quite a lot in this that I just can't imagine if you're a parent and you're trying to understand what your children are being taught, even if you obtain this curriculum and you're able to see it, or maybe if you speak another language, as you know, if English is a second language, trying to translate these concepts and understand what's going on here.
Right. The other thing, and I want to just I hope you don't mind, I'm continuing to point this out because it's a lot of people see the word critical and they think you're critiquing. You're doing like critical thinking thing, or like, is this good? Is this not, like you're critiquing something. But when you see words like criticality, critique of the master narrative, and then we come down to engaging in cycle of critical praxis, what they mean by critical is deconstruct. Okay, so tear down. You hear the words tear down. So when it's critique of the master narrative and claims of neutrality, so in other words, if the school says we're neutral, we're race neutral, we're ethnicity neutral, we are just presenting material, whatever, they're saying deconstruct that, they're not really.
Right.
Neutral. So they're coming out of the gate saying that's a lie. And so anytime you see critical, assume that what they're saying is destroy what already is. Get rid of what is, replace with what we think. And that's a premise. It's baked in there, but it's a premise. And again, when schools buy this stuff or decide to implement this stuff, they're saying, you parents and taxpayers, we accept that premise that we are not neutral and that we have to tear this apart. We have to make sure our teachers know that we're just inherently racist, we're inherently, whatever, ethnocentric. And here, addressing cultural, historical, sociopolitical, and economic levels of analysis. Now they're telling you to analyze the world this way, when this is just one way to analyze the world. It's not the right way. It's a way. So again, the state is deciding this is the right way because you're using state dollars, right? You're going to teach it to all the kids. If you as a parent don't know what that means, you can't even begin to challenge it and say, wait a minute, I don't agree with that.
Right.
Way. Okay, so sorry, I don't want to get hung up on this, but when you see
important
stuff like this, it's easy to just go, oh my God, brain cramp. I don't know what any of that means. They're smart. They're like teachers. They must know what it means, right?
Exactly. And this is the thing that is hard to believe is, keep in mind for anybody listening, this is for students. This is the student curriculum. This isn't the training manual for teachers. This is what each student receives from this class, which also important to share is that this school district mandated and required this course for graduation prior to the state of California making that a law and the implementation for that. We have some key people in Monterey County. One is a Monterey County Board Supervisor who is credited with the Ethnic Studies Initiative by the California Department of Education. His name is Luis Alejo. And so Luis is very involved in this effort. And he's not too far from Salinas. It's all in the same county. And sometimes it's really helpful to understand the different individuals involved here, which is some of what I can share in a little bit. But yeah, if you scroll down, this whole reader is actually quite long. It's about 200 pages, but
for the students.
Yeah.
What age group is getting this?
This is 9th grade.
So when we have kids that we already know are years behind in their reading, right? This isn't like super duper honors AP class. This is like average 9th grader, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So from teaching perspective, I'll give you my perspective. If I have students coming in and 70% of them, which is about what we're talking about, do not read proficiently and do not have vocabularies that are, high end on the vocabulary scale. And they come to this material what is likely to happen is the teacher is telling them what this says, and they don't have the ability to question it. First of all, they don't have the background knowledge and history of either Western Europe or the United States itself or anything to question the assertions here, but they definitely don't have the rhetorical ability to question it. They just don't. They're just, sorry. I don't mean to, it's not them. It's how they've been taught.
Right.
Okay. So should I keep going?
Yeah, actually, there's a couple pages I in a moment. This little poem here is a part of the Loch Etch, which is one of the chants that they partake in this class. That in and of itself is an entire topic of discussion. And actually, right now in the state of California, there is a lawsuit with regards to the Loch Etch chant or prayer, and then some of the chanting to the Aztec gods, which are also in the coming pages.
Yeah, that doesn't seem, I mean, we wouldn't put the Lord's Prayer here,
Mm-mm.
would we? Or the Shema? No, probably not likely, right?
No.
So that's kind of odd. All right. So, wow, look at some of these folks.
Yeah.
That's Angela Davis.
Yeah, and Angela Davis. So Monterey County is located right next to Santa Cruz County. And the important thing about that is Angela Davis is still very involved with UC Santa Cruz. And one of the things I've learned in researching is that there is a collaborative effort between school districts, county offices of education, members of the CTA, NEA, and American Federated Teachers. So these are all teachers union names that I'm mentioning. And then the college campuses, and also oftentimes activist organizations and these various curriculum companies. So it's almost like pulling back all these layers of onion of what is put in front of your student and where it traces back to. And oftentimes there's quite a big paper trail.
All right, keep going.
Yeah. So this is one of their community unity chants. And then I believe in the coming pages, you'll start seeing the, okay, so here's more meanings that they share. And then if you were to scroll, yeah.
Can I just pause for one quick second?
Absolutely.
Lots and lots of, I've tried to explain to my viewers that there are really overt in your face messages of collectivism, but they're also subtle ones. And so when you use words like unity, or we're all together, or these kinds of things over and over and over with students, what happens is the emphasis, the cultural emphasis is on tribalism. It's like, identify with a group. You as an individual sovereign person are not as important, and or possibly even holding yourself out away from people in a negative respect. It's, together. So this is a collectivist message throughout all of this. And we were an individualistic society with individual liberties and so forth. So this is just something that where you're orienting your students towards group membership and group behaviors. This kind of solidifies that mentality.
Right. Well, and it's another thing for me to think about the chants and the way music is brought and the clapping and the chanting, because we know, I mean, anybody listening to this can probably recall how easy it is sometimes to memorize and get a song stuck in your head and memorize the lyrics. Or, it's just sometimes we even teach children to memorize something using a song. And so the aspect of including chanting and the song really drives that message home into the part of their brain that's going to help store that information easily.
Sure. Yeah, for sure. And all of them are messages, like, you are my other me, the power is ours. This is getting creepy if you want to know the truth. Okay, keep going.
Okay, yeah, here is where we're starting to get into some of the different definitions of these terms. And then you have the introduction of these different Aztec gods. You can see the 4 movements there. And then this is where it gets into some of the specific chants to the Aztec gods. And if anybody had heard of Christopher Rufo's piece exposing what was the chanting to the Aztec god of human sacrifice, that is, there's multiple on here, but the next page, the hummingbird on the left, right there at the top, that's the chant.
This one?
Mm-hmm. And so that was exposed initially. And then many of these pages, actually, it appears that our Tolteca Quayton took them directly from his text in Rethinking Ethnic Studies and put them in this curriculum. So this is an example of some of that text in the book he edited being placed in this curriculum.
Right. And we have a lot of words in here again, like liberation, transformation, decolonization, emancipation, etc. Do you happen to know what standards is this, aside from the mandate to do ethnic studies, which, it's like circular at this point, so now it's its own standard. But other than that, what standards does this satisfy? Like, what would a parent be told as far as, they need to have this so they will know X in order to function in society or to be able to go on and live their lives? And what? But that's what I'm saying is, shouldn't we, in public schools in particular, if you want to go set up a private school or you can come out a good little Aztec, I mean, okay. But if you're going to public school, we're supposed to meet the needs of all the children, and you have these minimum basic skills. And I don't really like to use that term, but that is what is legally, what the legal standard is. Shouldn't all the mandated materials and everything that is taught or paid for have to support some kind of standard?
Well, and that's a whole other topic I could go into, but this particular district, what really grieves me and what saddens me is that I believe these students, and in our county in general, and in the state, we don't rank well academically. And
Right.
In my opinion, these kids are getting shorthanded in so many ways. They really deserve an opportunity to learn to love learning and to be exposed to great content that encourages them to achieve great things. And what I'm seeing is academic excellence, and that love of learning is on the back burner, so to speak. And on the forefront is, how do we create these activists? How do we get them civically engaged? All the while, many of these same boards discourage the civic engagement of the adult taxpayers and parents that come to a board meeting.
You're a domestic terrorist, so you have
right.
no say in it.
Absolutely.
But even looking at these words, it makes me crazy. Like, we have unity. It says to strive for and maintain unity in the family, community, nation, and race. Unity in the race. I mean, if this were like white people, you would be like horrified, right? Then it says self-determination, which you think, okay, that sounds good, right? Define ourselves, name ourselves, create for ourselves, and speak for ourselves. Sounds good, except for the name ourselves part, which I'm pretty sure is identify with the identities, right? And then it says collective work and responsibility. That sounds kind of communist to me. I don't know, call me crazy. Build and maintain our community together and make our brother and sisters' problems our problems and to solve them together. Well, that's a religious code of ethics. That's not the United States of America. We don't literally codify my brother's keeper. That's a religious belief. I'm not saying don't do it. I'm just saying that's not what the state makes you do. And then cooperative economics, build and maintain our own stores, shops, and other businesses to profit from them together. Not yourself.
Together.
Together. So everything is like together. And then faith, to believe with all our heart in our people, our parents, our teachers, our leaders, and the righteousness and victory of our struggle.
Required class.
So we're teaching the students, you're involved in a struggle. They define the struggle. Then they obligate the students to all of these goals, which are all collective goals. You thought you want to do it at college and go do your own thing. No. These are your goals. And what if you are not of this ethnicity? or any of these ethnicities? What if you're Asian? What if you're Black? What if you're white? In other words, you're not Hispanic or Native American, whatever this is coming from. Do you feel a little left out here?
Well, it's interesting that you say that, because in the last 6 months, I've had students from this district reach out to me, and there has been some challenges on campus, and signs put up about white supremacy by other students, and
This feels a lot
causing
like
division.
this feels a lot like the opposite of white supremacy. This feels a whole lot like a pursuit of white subjugation. And I don't like to say that because I don't want to give lip service to the people on that side who want to play victim. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm just saying is this doesn't feel like, hey, let's tell our stories also, or let's talk about our culture. This feels a whole lot like asserting a dominance or asserting a desire for dominance. Mm-hmm. That's what it feels like. But I mean, maybe I'm reading too much into it.
So okay. One of the pages coming up shortly, there's the Black Lives Matter unity chant.
It's our duty to win.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I wonder what that means. I wonder what winning looks like. We have nothing to lose but our chains. I think you have a lot to lose, actually, but that's okay. We have BLM stuff. So now the state is endorsing BLM explicitly.
Yep. And this county office of ed in this region promotes the Black Lives Matter curriculum as well. They have a whole social justice tab on their website. The Monterey County Office of Ed. Mm-hmm.
Solidarity and unity. Community, again. Critical consciousness, there it is again.
Mm-hmm. It's
Be self-critical, reflect on who you are to better yourself. I mean, that sounds so good. Doesn't sound bad. Unless the self part is defined arbitrarily by things that you have no control over.
Right.
Like, you're not neutral because you look like this.
Right.
Change.
This next page is an ethnicity and race diagnostic assessment, is what it's called.
No flipping way. Is person one of Hispanic, Latino, or Spanish origin? What is person one's race? Mark. I thought this state was supposed to remain out of that business. Like identifying, it's like none of your that you shouldn't have to, as part of a course where you'll be graded, answer questions like this.
Right.
Right. Mm-hmm. I mean, even the census is voluntary. You can put other or prefer not to say.
Right. And another thing that I've had a lot of parents tell me is that there are a variety of teachers in all subjects that are giving their students Google, basically like a quiz. So it's important for parents to know that your student may be asked to answer questions that are personal about their race, their gender, their sexuality. I apologize. I should have turned that off.
Now they're telling us about dollars in terms of what income levels.
Mm-hmm.
They're showing this to students for the purpose of what? To have them make blanket assumptions about their friends based on where they live and stuff. I mean, like, this is just feels. Oh, Spanish spoken at home. This is for the students? This is for the students.
Right. Yeah. This is all included for the students.
Okay. So again, parents, if you're listening and you thought that ethnic studies was we're going to learn about each other's like traditions and foods and language and history and, in terms of the facts of their history and stuff like that, they're sitting around talking about who speaks Spanish in the home, how much money they have in the home based on where they live. This feels a lot like othering. This resembles to a large degree lesson plans you might have seen in a certain place, and time in Germany, where we wanted to be really sure we identified who had the money and who didn't have the money and what language they spoke and what traditions they had, and like that was relevant.
Right.
How does that about understanding? Like, what do you understand about somebody when you have a guesstimate of what their household income is? Really nothing. You understand nothing about them.
Yeah. If we were to
So
skip through, there's a particular, this is some of their
ex-disciplinary thinking.
Yeah.
Disciplinary, I guess. I don't know what this means. So what else do you want me to skip? Keep going.
Oh, yeah. There is a table of scholar activists. That's this next page. Yeah, that you're looking at is owned by Artelteca.
This one?
Yeah, some of the focuses behind ethnic studies. But if you were to skip down to page 46.
Oh my God, we could spend all day doing this.
I know.
Imperialist,
we really could look at
colonial,
every single page.
Hegemonic. If you guys get any message from us, is that you really, really, really need to read the things that your kids are looking at. Okay, should I keep going?
Yeah. Page 46, I would say, if you can scroll down.
I don't think the double helix is accidental either. They were trying to make it look like this stuff is in our DNA. Keep going.
Yeah, there's a page 46, so that's 32. Oh wait, you know what? Go back. Sorry, that the
this
page one more above, and then one more up. I think it's a list that is important right here. Step 4, yeah. So it says decoloniality, regeneration, and social justice. That is a lot to unpack right there. But this number 4 is part of a 4-part list, obviously, but this is part of their solutions. So
God. Can I read some of this?
Please do, yeah.
Oh my God. This is okay. First, I'm going to read the little preamble. We are holistic human beings and communities, intellectual, emotional, physical, spiritual, relational, terrestrial. I'm glad I'm terrestrial. Cosmic, spatial, intergenerational, temporal, historical. Is that to get rid of the his in there?
Yeah, it's supposed to be, not gendered.
Multidimensional, community, culture, wealth-based, ecological, with identities and counter stories to share.
Mm-hmm.
Now, here we go. Are you ready? Regeneration of indigeneity and roots, love, humanization, healing, equity, decolonization, post-colonial belongingness, solidarity, critical, compassionate, creative consciousness, cultural memory, empowerment, remembrance, recognition, reclamation. They kicking somebody out of their house. Reimagination, restoration, resurgence, revitalization, reconciliation. I'm not gonna reconcile you, take my house. Self-determination, sovereignty, agency, critical hope, creation, transformation, resistance to hegemonic, oppressive colonial systems of power, counter-narrativity, counter-hegemony, counter-genocide.
Counter-genocide.
Counter-genocide. What does counter-genocide look like?
I don't want to know.
What does genocide look like? You either have genocide, but you don't have genocide. Counter-genocide means we genocide you back.
Right.
That's literally what it means. Sue someone, you are suing them while they're suing you. So counter genocide. The
protest movements and revolutions. That's also important. I have not shared it yet, but there's actually an activist pledge that they have kids fill in the blanks for. That's in one of the items received. And they actually teach kids to form counter narratives. What will you be, what's something you're passionate for that you can go out, what's going to be your cause? And then how do you plan to respond to those who, basically don't agree with you? And it
says here, standing against dehumanization, identifying origins of knowledge, like it matters, critiquing the master narrative and claims of objectivity, neutrality, including colorblindness, and highlighting marginalized worldviews. Well, maybe they're marginalized for a reason. Like the Aztecs sacrificed humans. Can we marginalize that worldview? I think that's a good one to marginalize. I mean, what? Addressing cultural, historical, sociopolitical. Sorry, I mean, nobody should want their children who can barely read. They really can't. I'm sorry, they really, really can't. They're not good readers. Having the queering means the making queer
Right. And that's also important because, again, these layers of this onion, most people wouldn't think that their kids are being taught sexual orientation, gender identity, which have roots, and there's other content in this class that has roots in gender and queer theory that's woven into these courses, but that is exactly what is going on.
Like a brain cleanse now. How do you do this? I thought I had it rough. I'm sitting here telling people like, this is hard work, you guys. I like need to like cleanse my soul when I'm done. And then I see what you do, and I'm like, okay, I'm not worthy. All right. Okay.
Yeah, page 46 is one of the ones I do want to highlight, because on page 46, which stems to page 47, here we are. It's hard to see, obviously, but if somebody wanted to look at it right from the website, they could. The significance of this is that there are 29 different social identities that they break people up into. And it tells, we've got the privileged hegemonic group in them, the form of discrimination and oppression,
I'm gonna try to take a picture of it and flip it around like as a screen grab.
Oh, sure, sure.
See if that helps. I don't know if it's gonna work, but that might help me a little bit. And then, okay, I gotta rotate this. So keep going, keep going.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I'm pulling it up, actually. I'm holding the actual.
Okay. So
so we have the social identity, privileged hegemonic group. Again, the hegemony phrase comes from Antonio Gramsci. Form of discrimination and oppression, the oppressed marginalized groups. So these are the different columns at the top. And then what are their internalized oppressions? And then this is really important column. It says the form of resistance. And they actually encourage and promote and teach students forms of resistance. And then it states in the last column, the institutional structural oppressions. So there's people that might think, oh, we're hearing about CRT in this area and that area, and people are starting to speak up. But this is just something that's fringe. It's not just fringe, and it's really a group that is growing, and it has a lot of support from university campuses around the country. And the important thing when we see shocking content like this is to also know that as teachers in mass will, some have already retired, but as new teachers are coming on scene, most of the time right now, their credentialing programs are including radicalization in this very content. So where your area may not be as perhaps extreme as obviously my county is, there it may be subtly being introduced, but this is the ideology of some of these people that have children and sitting ducks, an audience for 30 plus hours a week. And these are, keep in mind, these are adults with ideologies, and these are children with brains that are still developing, the prefrontal cortex responsible for decision making. They're, what oftentimes input can equate to output. These are all important things as parents, as taxpayers, as, just people who care. It's important to know that. So, I mean, just for example, on this particular page that we're looking at, you're privileged if you are heterosexual. You're privileged if, your labor activity is part of a corporation. You're privileged if you have a clean criminal record. You are privileged, and your form of discrimination is recidivist discrimination, it says on item 28. And then you are oppressing, or the oppressed marginalized group of those who have a clean criminal record, it states, are those who have a criminal record or who are ex-felons or who are incarcerated. And it says that the form of resistance is restorative justice. So they're teaching their, what I would call a woke ideology and philosophy of world politics, everything on these kids.
It sounds to my ear like people who made really bad choices are trying to offload the the negative consequences of those choices onto people who made good choices by making it sound like it's not my fault. It's like this system of oppression that I ended up incarcerated and I'm a felon. It's a system of oppression that resulted in my having a blue collar job rather than a white collar job in a corporation. Like I had nothing to do with it whatsoever. Now, that's not the same thing as saying that, everything is perfect. That it's super easy to just pick and choose. Like I want a blue collar job, white collar job. Yep, I just snap my fingers and do it. No, both there's work and sometimes luck. Okay, a little bit of luck. And sometimes the luck is, luck of the draw, that luck of birth, yeah, sometimes that happens. But that's not the same as saying you're oppressed. It's not the same as saying like everybody else needs to lay down, like forget the rule of law. You went to jail and now we need to like overlook all that. And the people who didn't go to jail are oppressing you. This is so messed up. No wonder we're seeing people not wanting to arrest shoplifters.
Oh yeah, California politics.
Let me guess, they're victims, right? They fall on this like victim class thing, the people who walk into the store and walk out with $900 worth of merchandise without a buy or leave, just like I'm taking it, bye, see you later, don't touch me.
Right.
This justifies it. This literally justifies it. Everything that we look at here is saying this is why it's okay.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's another thing that I noticed on here. I mean, each column is worth looking at and seeing what these people are promoting and what their goals are for this country. But I mean, it is interesting, obviously no surprise, you're privileged under the categories if you're white or if you're a male or if you're a Christian. And, the form of resistance for, let's see, for, men is, womanism and feminism. And then the institutional structural oppression is patriarchy. And actually, part of this curriculum includes a poetic letter to patriarchy. I mean, it's just filled. This, again, we started the conversation by talking about the name ethnic studies and learning about different people's experiences, different cultures. Nowhere have any of us seen anything about, the families or the different foods and traditions and, all the different things that make up a different ethnicity or a culture. We're not enjoying that. We're not getting that. They should have called this Activism 101 or something.
Yeah, can you hear me now, you guys? They said my sound was cutting out, but it might be because I was doing this, because I was like looking. That is really such an important point, Kelly, that they're saying ethnic studies and what the state is mandating is ethnic studies. And then they adopt this curriculum. So at a minimum, what you and I would say, correct me if I'm wrong, is we don't really take issue with a requirement that students study ethnicities or something that make up the patchwork quilt of California. What we take issue with is this isn't that. Mm-hmm. This isn't that. This is a very specific philosophical approach and worldview. This is a worldview that is all wrapped up in critical theory, which itself is all wrapped up in collectivism, neo-Marxism, postmodernism. Like, in other words, things that are antithetical to Americanism. I mean, quite literally, like they do not align with maintaining the country as that we have. And I'm not talking about never making any positive change. I'm talking about the Bill of Rights, the Constitution, equality under the law, race blindness of the law, those kinds of things. That's what I mean by equality under the law. They're saying it's not neutral. And yet what I'm not seeing here, and maybe it's somewhere else in some of the other materials, is I'm not seeing the data to support their underlying premises. So if they make a premise that you are privileged if all these classifications, and we need to fight for liberation, shouldn't they have to bring it? Like, shouldn't they have to show that there's this is fact-based, what they're teaching these kids?
Yeah, they should. And that's the thing behind this is we have kids that are in these classes, and some of them do get really engaged with this, and the influence of the teacher can really make an impact on that child, to the point where that child now is feeling compelled to follow in right in this. And then obviously you have other kids who are just, they don't want this activism. They just want to learn math. They just want to get better at science. They want to write better. All those things. On page 86 and 87, it mentions
Sorry, I'm going so fast and people are getting a headache.
Yeah, it's a lot.
86 and 87.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we've got 84 to. Well, first of all, this is just already like, wow.
Right.
86.
Yeah, there's 86. So that's a mention of the Third World Liberation Front. And they do talk about that and things that happen, the student strikes, and the desire to transform education. In the book that our Tolteca was editor for, Rethinking Ethnic Studies, the whole message that is really loud and clear is that they are really promoting students to be activists. That is ultimately, they want students to stand up for student rights and students to, form their ideas, and really, this also plays into a whole other curriculum that's a whole other topic for another time. But the State Seal of Civic Engagement program that's been brought forth in California will encourage kids towards that activism, and then schools will be tied with different activist organizations for students. Like, one is called Generation Up, and another is called MICFA Challenge. And so both of those organizations have a political ideology, and ironically, they're both associated with Mr. Quayton.
Oh boy.
Mm-hmm. But on the next page, you've got another, time reference to Angela Davis. And then if you want to skip through to pages 136 and 137, I'll highlight. Yeah, we've got the communist fist in there that we passed. They break out the different units using that fist.
136.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God, there it is.
Yeah.
There's 2035, but.
Yeah, this is an artwork. Shepard Fairey is one of the artists. So is Ernesto. Let's see, I can't see it, but anyways, Shepard Fairey actually did Barack Obama's campaign poster, but this is, just some artwork that's featured in the curriculum. So you've got a lot of messages in there.
This is Jesus Christ.
With guns.
With guns, dollar bills. These are vultures carrying human hearts.
Mm-hmm.
These are pigs. This is the English flag. We have slavery represented here from Africa, and bondage, and England, and ships. The ships came from Portugal, but that's okay. This is really seriously messed up. I'm sorry, but I just find it to be very messed up. What in the okay.
Right. Yeah. There's a lot of messaging, both, not just in text that the students read. And now we have the, we've discussed chanting. And now we have the components of art. If you look at the bottom of this, that rose symbol on the bottom left, there's more meaning to that. That may be a socialist logo. I would say I'm not 100% on that, but there's significance in every little detail of this artwork. And then you've got the obey symbol on the bottom right.
This is obey,
which is part of a line of artwork that Shepard Fairey has. and he has his own, as an artist, his own political ideas and whatnot. But anyways, we could probably dissect so much of this, but I do want to, before,
Yeah, that's
yeah,
cute. What do you want me to go
174 would be
Okay.
next, page 174.
Okay.
Oh, wait, you know what? You passed 151. That's
Sorry.
a hard topic to delve into, and it's not written on the page, but
Cellular memories,
right.
epigenic trauma.
Yeah, intergenerational epigenetic trauma.
Adrian, my scientist in the house. I'm like, what? They're teaching the kids this?
Right.
Epigenic trauma is. It's a theory. What do I say?
I know. And then also important is the next page after that. I mean, each of these are to understand the ideas and the history and the full context and understanding of some of these individual pages, like that page.
What is
what is
like, what the hell is this word? Woman rape survivors? What happened to female?
Right.
No. Okay. Very confused.
So 170. Oh, I was going to say.
Sorry, I'll keep going. I'm sorry. I'm
sorry.
having
I know.
a mental breakdown here.
It's hard because every single page has, like, you could focus in on every single page and what's going on here.
Revisioning American history. Oh, that's very true. Revisioning as opposed to revising.
Right.
Revisionist. Okay, so where shall I go now?
Oh, sure. Page 174 and then 175.
Okay. Whimper. Okay. It's my white fragility talking, right? Isn't that what they tell me? It's
right.
Not my like common sense and decency talking. All right. Wow.
Yeah. Can you imagine being a student in this class? I can't.
This goes way beyond, this is way beyond anything resembling ethnic studies. And it should be noted that the California Board of Education approved this. So I am racist, so are you. Well, you know what? I'm sorry to say, but according to Facebook's analysis of its, hate speech algorithm, it's very possible that a lot of people who look like that in the class are in fact racist, because that's what they found. They abandoned the project to, limit the hate speech because they assumed it was all white people. And then they found out that it was like 2 to 1, not white people against white people. This is terrifying. Anyone.
Well, and the sad thing is it's already proven, and from what I'm hearing from families and from students, a lot of the rhetoric, even before this class was introduced, the rhetoric is going through in every class by, whether it's math class or English class or whatever it may be, and it really does cause division on campus. So you're a student, you're not, maybe I think about school and the times where I was wanting to learn more in a given subject. Maybe there's students that are experiencing that, but this is the course they have to spend time in, and they have to take this and listen to this and be told that this is the way. Really, in my opinion, it's almost like it's telling them this is the way you think. But this page you're looking at, we're looking at Frere and his levels of consciousness that they are teaching.
What strikes me about all of this is the amount of projection. So, right. For example, so far, everything we've read appears to be what they either are doing or want to do to other people. Everything I see here, well, I mean, I've read Frere before, so I know that pretty much everything he's talking about is what he wants the students to do. Not what they actually do, but what he wants to convince them that they do, because if they believe they do these things, then their brains will be receptive to the other thoughts that the groomer wants them to believe. Whether it's a groomer, a sexual groomer, or a political groomer, it kind of doesn't matter. If you believe these things that he's saying about how your brain works or is working, or how society's organized, if he can get you to believe this stuff, you're just a sitting duck. But there's no framework that allows a student to challenge this. So a student in the 9th grade who's presented with the premise that you have these stages of thinking: magical, naive, and critical, and unless you agree with the statements I'm about to make about race, class, power, and society and privilege, then you're still stuck in magical thinking, which in fact is the exact opposite of true. And you're naive. When you agree with everything I say and you do the work I want you to do, and you go out into the world and tell other people everything that I'm saying, then you will have achieved critical consciousness. When you're sufficiently angry and, disillusioned, then you're really awake. That's postmodernism right there. But it's also a recipe for deep depression and violence, either against the self or against everybody outside. But it's projection. It's like, what I want you to think is true. Here it is. It's really disgusting if you think about it. I mean, I think he was a psychopath, personally.
Well, and it's interesting because there is such a promotion of Frere in California, I think in many other states as well. But I mean, many people don't know that UCLA has an entire Frere Institute now. And then the curriculum instruction, I might even have you show that next. Okay. It's the CISC symposium, but CISC is just an acronym for Curriculum and Instruction Steering Committee.
Is that, was that not this one? No?
Yeah, CISC. Let's see.
That's this one?
Yes.
Okay,
so
sorry.
This is coming up February, and the Monterey County Office of Ed appears to be helping plan this event. And isn't it pretty here? It really is, despite the politics. Look at that ocean. At any rate, the event is called Liberate, and they will be gathering together to, you can actually click on the About CISC, see if that shows up. Okay. So it talks about, they are the committee that is putting forward the direction for curriculum and framework in partnership with various school districts, the California Department of Education, and then they say, and other partners to ensure programs, practices, and services that support success for all students. So when we hear support success, that sounds really great, but what is really their focus? And it may, on another one of the drop down where it says learn more, perhaps that may be.
Oh yeah, there we go. There it is.
Center race, equity, diversity, amplify student voice and leadership. Somewhere on this website, there's actually a Frere quote. So they really like him.
If there is anything. Designed for trauma-free schools. It's not at all traumatic to find out that you're oppressed. And that guy over there is part of the oppressive group.
Yeah, reframe complex systems.
Disrupting systems of inequity and centering race, equity, diversity, and inclusion. Optimizing and scaling improvement methodologies in complex and rapid. I have a headache.
I know.
It's so, what makes me so frustrated is the narrative out there, like the mainstream media was like, this is boogeyman. There is no critical race thing. What are you talking about? You people don't even know what it is. What? Stop. What?
Well, and that is a very good point you made, because after a June 22nd school board meeting at Salinas Union High School District, the local news here, KION 46, interviewed and reached out to the school district there. And the school board president actually, according to the story, strongly denied that CRT was taught. Well, that's very interesting, because he himself has taught in college and really promotes the ethnic studies class, and he's very engaged with all of this. But I happened to find an article after that news report was released where the curriculum specialist of this school district actually admitted, and the website is a KQED link, where he said that they're including critical race theory. So that's really important admission. But actually, the slides for the class include critical race theory. And then in the source documents, they mention critical race theory, but they also mention Lat-crit theory.
Latin, yeah. It's all of a sort. It's, I mean, that's the other thing that's that's really important for people to understand, is that CRT would be better as an acronym for critical reimagining the world theory or whatever. It's just critical theory. You could even get rid of the R.
Right.
Because the race piece is just one tiny little piece. But critical theory has, all kinds of different lenses. It's almost like the, steampunk thing with like lots of little lenses, or the optometrist, like, here, oh, you want the one for Latin? Here it is, Latin Americans, and here's the one for this, and here's the one for that, and here's this. But you're basically wearing these goggles at all times that power privilege. And then you put the one for race over it, and now you're seeing your view of like how power and privilege affects race in America, how power and privilege affects sex or sexual orientation or gender or whatever. But you're always wearing the critical theory goggles.
Right.
That's the pair you never take off if you are doing this stuff. And that's really the bad one, because that's the one that kind of forces you into this silo where everything is about power and privilege. It's just we'll look at race that way. We'll look at this that way. We'll look at that way. But you have to accept the premise that everything that you're looking at, every interaction, every situation, every problem you need to solve is a problem of power and privilege. It's a way to oversimplify every single complex problem and system and whatever in our world. And I think it's incredibly dangerous and more akin to like a primitive faith, like a primitive religion, than an academic theory. It's like, imagine people back in, thousands of years ago, like, I wonder why this happened. Oh, it must be this, right? And they came up with like this simplistic, the gods must be angry answer, right? And I feel like that's what critical theory is. Why is this not the way I want it? Why is that not the way I want it? And the answer to all of it is this. This is my one answer, and we're just going to go down this path. And so the students not only are not challenged to think about different ways to solve problems, they're forced into only one way. And it's not a solution. It's just a destructive ideology. Let's destroy what is, because what is the problem. Reality is the problem. Give them solutions, and they sure as heck aren't giving them skills with which to rebuild the world after they burn it down.
Yeah, this is all about, it appears to be, conformity and compliance.
So what else can we look at?
Okay. So I think it's helpful also to know some of the places where this is coming from. So if there is a Liberated Ethnic Studies website,
I have Defend Ethic Studies. I've got the Weekend of Free Minds, the registration for Free Minds. What else? Oh, here, this one.
Yes.
Okay.
So for anybody that is still trying to claim that critical race theory is not taught in K through 12 schools, I invite them to look at this website. liberatedethnicstudies.org. And you can actually scroll down. You can view the slide decks on, they're going to be launching nationally. This is really important, for people to be aware of. They're making their national launch February 6th.
Look,
and that, yeah,
teaching critical race theory in K-12 classrooms.
there you have it.
You can a workshop on how to incorporate critical race theory in K-12 classrooms. November 20th, 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. That means it was in the past. It happened already.
Right.
Doing that. This isn't happening. It's all in your imagination. Don't believe your lying eyes. Nope, that's not happening. Stop.
Yeah. And it's important for people to know that some of the faculty members, some of the very involved, like right in here in this photo, right there in the hat is Mr. Artolteca himself. And then we have a CTA, California Teachers Association bag. We have members of this Liberated Ethnic Studies Model Curriculum Coalition that are both very involved with their California Teachers Association Union and the National Education Association Union, which is the largest labor union in the country.
They also say some things in here like equipping Black, Chicanx, Latinx, Asian American, American Indian, Indigenous, and low-income youth with skills to participate in community advancement, social justice, and transformative change. In other words, to become activists.
Right.
Well, that's just awesome.
Right.
Systems of oppression, be able to imagine a better world. Okay, so
if you were to click on at the top, let's see, I'd say under the home, maybe under institutes, faculty, under home, and then you can click on faculty. Okay, so these are some of the people involved. That one on the top left actually is in my county. The concern for this Liberated Ethnic Studies is there's actually a story out today about this coalition and a training that they held, but this group has expressed to the media that they're not happy with the changes that were made for the ethnic studies model curriculum at the state. Okay. Many groups came out expressing that they were concerned about content being anti-Semitic. And so a lot was removed from that content before it was finalized. And this Liberated group, they're doing these trainings at the Santa Cruz County Office of Education, and their members are very involved individually, individual districts. Both we have San Diego, Hayward's another, Salinas is another, and that's mentioned in a story that came out today. But it's important for people to understand some of the different people and how, even though if something gets removed at the State Department of Ed, that it can still make its way in another way. So anyways, let's see here. The last couple of things I wanted to share. There's two members under here. It may be under home and then about us, maybe there. Okay, so these are some of the key leaders. And right here we have Guadalupe or Lupe Carrasco Cardona. And then we have Dr. Teresa Montano. Both of them are very involved with CTA and NEA. And so it's important sometimes to helpfully understand they're in this group, they're in this group, they're in that group, and this is how it's going. So those two have been speaking at different events, but if we can take a shift over to that Save Arab American Studies .org website.
This one blew my mind. I looked at this
same.
the other day. This one absolutely blew my mind. This is, there's so much on here that is not only overtly political, but many of us would classify as anti-Semitic. And I don't care who you are. There's no way to weasel your way out of that. It just isn't. So
if you scroll down a bit, this Free Minds, Free People virtual conference, which I'll show in a moment, is there. And then if you keep scrolling down, they're tied here with Angela Davis, and people can watch that on YouTube or on Facebook that she did, but important to be aware of because Angela Davis is, still a big fan of the Communist USA Party. And if you go on the Instagram account for Communist USA, she's actually, featured in some recent posts. So, yeah, that's really important.
This I thought was interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. The coalition info at araborganizing.org. And then these are the logos of their coalition.
Chinese Progressive Association. Nice. CARE. Yeah. Yeah. So, wow.
So again, all these, I would say it's their network. And we have people from different college campuses. Some of the documents I received in my California Public Records request includes emails. And some of those emails show discussions between, a professor at Harvard and, you've got this organization and, various persons involved with this. And so parents, by the time you get that, your child gets this curriculum in their class, or maybe it's a supplemental curriculum, it's really, there's so many layers to this. And especially if there's any messages of activism involved, it's really interesting to see who the activists and their organizations are. So I just want to share this to, hope people need to know this, especially if this group is, launching nationally.
Well, absolutely. And then one time when I looked at this as well, they had, I'm trying to think, what else they had here. They also claim to have Jewish community support, but it's a very narrow, teeny little organization. It would be like, I mean, it's like saying Jews for Jesus, support this, and that means the Jewish community supports it. That's just not really accurate. And they have, a bunch of stuff in this report, which you can click on, that is also decidedly anti-Zionist. And so, and they actually use that term throughout this, that, they want to push back on Zionists and Zionism and so forth. Well, Zionists are just people who believe in Israel's right to exist. That's all that is. So if you're coming out and you're teaching students in California that Zionists are bad, that means you're saying Israel has no right to exist. And that is not only a political position, but it's a fairly extreme one.
Right. I think if you click learn more under the event, scrolling down, then people can see even that text.
Webinars, you mean?
No, not in the drop down, but on the homepage, you just back to free.
This one?
Yeah. If you click learn more, that's where you see
here it is.
Launch. Yeah.
Yep. Help launch the National Liberated Ethnic Studies Coalition, fight Zionist and right-wing attacks. And then,
right. And then right in here, actually, part of this event included those names again. We have Teresa Montano, and right here, it's hard to see, but I see Lupe Carrasco Cardona. Those are two, again, they're involved with CTANEA, and LESMC. But if you were to go to the, let's see, I think it's register where it says, or get in, right, click to here. Yeah. Here we are.
Mm-hmm.
So this organization has an Instagram account, really helps see what they believe. And if you scroll down, I encourage your audience to, even if you filter by track on the right and you're seeing this, it says young activist programming. Just think about what that means. Young activist programming. And then they have the list of events of their past event that they held. And some of these people were part of that event joining in. And, we have topics in here that even talked about activist singing time, how to have a toy protest. And these are for ages 5 to 12, later on in this. We've got even kids as comrades. We've got gardening for food justice. Yeah, it even talks about math.
This is just insane. I've given you guys the links in the chat, and after this is over, I'll put all these links in the show notes below, so you'll be able to click around and play around with this. And please share this with other people you know. If not this broadcast, at least share like all the links and let people know. And also, they should subscribe to your podcast, right? So they can hear more about this stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. I've got some new episodes that are coming soon because there's so much to be covered. We have a lot happening in this county. I mean, many people heard about the Spreckles Union School District that made national news. I mean, that's here as well. The Spreckles School District students that graduate 8th grade go on to the Salinas Union High School District. So we've got a lot.
I just subdivided to show what there was for like young activists and youth programming. The intersection, a creative and interactive dialogue centering gender justice in the movement for Black lives and uplifting Black joy. And understand something, folks, the movement for Black lives is different from BLM. You need to go to m4bl.org and look at how different that is from BLM. Read some of their draft legislation. Read their goals. They're explicitly to get rid of the police, empty the jails, and on. And then you look at who funds them, because that group has billions of dollars, not hundreds of millions, billions with a B. The Movement for Black Lives is the group you didn't even know existed, and that is who is running this. Okay, yeah, centering the experience of cis, trans, and gender non-conforming, whatever. But this is the kind of stuff they want to recruit children into through the public schools.
Yep,
it's not like
there's one called
thing.
Yeah, there was one even called Black Panther in Solidarity with Rainbow Bear is one of the event titles for kids.
Awesome.
And
tax dollars at work, guys. Your tax dollars at work. All right, so I'm going to stop the share here so we can. Where can people find you other than on Twitter? For sure, we've got you at Kelly S. Right? Are you at Kelly S?
At Kelly SKE.
Okay.
And atimetostand.me is the website. Like we shared, the entire ethnic studies curriculum is on there. We're planning to upload more. And the podcast is anchor.fm/atimetostand. We've got a couple of interviews on there. So
yeah, Deb, if you got what?
I was going to say, thank you so much for having me.
Oh, no, I'm sorry to like, I'm just looking at the time and I'm going, oh my God, we've been on here for almost an hour and a half.
I know.
But I mean, guys, I hope you can see that like we could keep going and going and going like a little, it's a painful Energizer Bunny process. But the point of this, though, was to show you that you're being lied to when they say it's not there. B, they're disguising it cleverly with things you have a hard time arguing against, like ethnic studies, right? And C, that it's really pernicious. It's not educational. It's indoctrination in its most pure form. And it's being taught not just in lieu of important skills that the kids need to learn, but it is being taught to students who don't have skills back. So, like they just don't have the ability to resist this. And they're good kids. They want to do the right thing, and they're told this is the right thing. They're told how to feel. They're told who they are. They're told what they should do, etc. And you almost begin to understand when you see this why the kids think the way they do. How else could they? What other options do they have? Right? So, yeah, follow Kelly and subscribe to the podcast and just kind of spread this word around because people need to know what's going on. Any final thoughts?
Get involved, research this. I homeschool my kids now, but it is important. I'm compelled to share this. And sometimes, there's so much going on, but I really encourage parents to dive deeper into what their kids are being provided in school. There's so much going on. And thank you for having me.
Point. You're homeschooling. My kids are not in the public schools. And I mean, they're kind of in a homeschool academy. So, but we're still doing this. So being that, like, whether you have kids or you don't, whether you have kids in the system or you don't, this is going to back up on all of us. This is going to affect the direction that the country takes. It's not an accident that we see some of the policies that we see where people are saying things to you like, you know, you owe me, you have to do this because me, you know, I'm oppressed by you and you're non-mask wearing or you're non-vaccine getting or whatever it is that you're doing that you thought was an individual choice on your part is kids are being taught no choice that you make is independent of other people. You're part of a group. And if you're unlucky enough to not be in one of the groups that they've decided are without privilege, then you're at fault for all their problems. So get used to it. And obviously, if you don't like that or you don't want that to be the case because it's ridiculous, you need to get involved and you can't just put your head in the sand, right, Kelly? You can't just pretend this isn't happening and or that it won't affect you. Well, I don't have kids in school, so it doesn't matter. Or I don't, you know, whatever.
Or I'm shy, you know,
or whatever. I mean, if you're shy and you don't want to speak out, I totally get that. But that's when you go and you know, just share things
right
like this with people, like amplify the voices of the people who aren't shy. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I'm not saying that to toot our horns. I'm saying because we want you to, we want you to, like, I bring her on. I'm like, oh, please listen to her podcast. I will do all these. The more of us sharing each other's stuff, I figure that the more people will hear it and get the message. So that's the general gist of it. But I thank you so much. And I almost feel like I want to create like a regular monthly program of a joint show where it's like, what do you got for us now, Kelly? Because I feel like you probably will have another mountain of it. We didn't even touch like half the stuff that you found last week.
I know. And I found more last night. So I was looking through, you know, several other topics and it really is continuous.
Come back. I hope you'll come back because I learned something. So you're finding a wealth of information for me and certainly for my audience. So I would love to have you back. I mean, we could literally come up with like a regular show just so you get like that, you know, YouTube exposure and you get the podcast and like whatever it takes. But thank you so much for the work you do. It's got to be tireless and, you know, thankless. And I know how stressful and painful it is firsthand. So bless you. Thank you for doing this work. And thank you to everyone who watched. And please, please share this out with other folks. So thanks for coming, you guys, and have a great weekend.